So, here's the thing. I have been married to Laura for 8 years, and if anyone had asked me, I would have said we were happy. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that ever made me doubt her loyalty. That is, until I heard our daughter Emma say the words that would turn my world upside down. It was a sunny Saturday morning, and I was in the kitchen making breakfast when I overheard Emma talking to Laura in the living room. I wasn't really paying attention until I heard Emma say, "Yes, Mom. I like your new lover. He's much better than Daddy, and also very rich." My heart stopped. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My first thought was that there had to be some mistake. Maybe Emma was talking about a character from a book or a TV show, but as I listened more closely, it became painfully clear that she wasn't T. She was talking about a real person. I walked into the living room trying to keep my composure. Laura was sitting on the couch looking as calm as ever, while Emma was playing with her dolls on the floor. I looked at Laura, and she met my gaze with a defiant look, as if daring me to confront her. "Emma, sweetie, can you go play in your room for a bit?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Okay, Daddy," she said, getting up and running to her room. Once Emma was out of earshot, I turned to Laura. "What the hell is going on, Laura?" Laura sighed and rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Tom, don't act so surprised." I felt my anger rising. "What do you mean, don't act surprised? Our daughter just said you have a lover. Are you cheating on me?" Laura shrugged nonchalantly. "Yes, Tom, I am. And honestly, I don't see what the big deal is. We're not happy, and I found someone who makes me happy. Someone who can give me the life I deserve. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You found someone who makes you happy. And what about Emma? What about our family?" Laura scoffed. "Oh, please. Emma likes him, and as for our family, it was a sham to begin with. You're always working, never around, and when you are boring. Frankly, Tom, you're not enough for me." I stood there, speechless. I felt like my entire world was collapsing around me. How could she be so cold, so cruel, and to involve our daughter in her deceit? I knew I couldn't let this go. I had to do something, but first I needed to know who this lover was. "Who is he?" I demanded. Laura smirked. "His name is Mark. He's rich, charming, and everything you are not." The humiliation was unbearable. I felt a burning need for revenge to make her pay for what she'd done. "You're going to regret this, Laura. I promise you that." She laughed. "Oh, Tom, you are pathetic. Do what you want. It won't change anything." But I knew better. I was determined to use every cruel method of revenge I knew. Laura had no idea what she had unleashed. As I stood there watching her smug expression, I made a silent vow to myself. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. And when I was done, Laura and her precious Mark would wish they had never crossed me. After my confrontation with Laura, I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't let her get away with betraying me, humiliating me in front of our daughter, and tearing our family apart. I decided to take a leave of absence from work, claiming it was for personal reasons. My colleagues understood, and my boss, knowing I had always been a reliable employee, granted my request without much hassle. For the next few days, I meticulously crafted my plan. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served cold, and I intended to serve it on ice. I began by gathering all the evidence I could find. I checked Laura's phone and computer when she wasn't T around. She had been careless, leaving incriminating messages and photos which I copied and saved. I also installed a small camera in the living room, ensuring I had video proof of any future encounters with her lover, Mark. Laura, oblivious to my activities, continued her affair openly, flaunting her newfound happiness. She even had the audacity to bring Mark to our house when she thought I was at work. I made sure to act as if everything was normal, not letting on that I knew more than she thought. One evening, when Emma was at a friend's house, Laura decided to invite Mark over for dinner. I told her I had to work late and wouldn't be home. Instead, I parked my car a few blocks away and walked back to the house, sneaking in through the back door. The camera I had installed captured their entire evening, from the moment he arrived to their intimate moments on the couch. Watching them together, I felt a mix of rage and betrayal, but it only strengthened my resolve. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I needed to make sure I had all my bases covered before making any drastic moves. We discussed the evidence I had gathered and the potential outcomes. My lawyer was confident that I had a strong case for divorce on the grounds of adultery, which would work in my favor, especially regarding the division of assets and any potential alimony Laura might seek. While the legal wheels were set in motion, I turned my attention to Mark. Laura had mentioned he was wealthy, but I needed to know more about him. A quick online search revealed he owned a successful real estate business. He had a public image of being a respectable businessman, but I was determined to uncover any dirt I could find. Over the next few days, I dug deep into Mark's life. I hired a private investigator to follow him and gather information. What I found was a gold mine. Mark wasn't just seeing Laura. He had a history of affairs with married women. He used his wealth and charm to seduce them, promising them the world, only to discard them when he got bored. Armed with this information, I knew exactly how to hit him where it hurt. One afternoon, I visited Mark S.'s office under the pretense of wanting to invest in real estate. I dressed the part, wearing my best suit and acting every bit the interested investor. Mark, eager to land a new client, welcomed me into his office. "Mr. Carson, it's a pleasure to meet you," he said, extending his hand. "Likewise, Mr. Anderson," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I've heard a lot about your business and wanted to discuss a potential investment opportunity." He led me to a conference room, and we discussed real estate investments for a while. I made sure to play the part convincingly, asking all the right questions. After a while, I steered the conversation towards more personal matters. "Mark, if you don't mind me asking, how do you manage to balance such a successful business with your personal life?" I inquired, feigning genuine curiosity. He chuckled. "It's all about time management and having the right people around you. My personal life is just as important as my business." I nodded, hiding my contempt. That assesses impressive. It is rare to find someone who excels in both. As we continued talking, I could see he was getting comfortable, believing he had a new investor hooked. Little did he know I was about to turn his world upside down. "By the way, Mark," I said casually, "I couldn't help but notice that you and my wife seem quite close." His smile faltered for a moment before he regained his composure. "Oh, Laura, she's a wonderful woman. We've become good friends. Good friends, huh?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "Does that include sleeping with her?" His face turned pale and he stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and played one of the videos I had taken of him and Laura. His eyes widened and shocked as he realized he was caught. "You see, Mark, I know everything. And now so will everyone else if you don't back off." He was silent, clearly shaken. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear from our lives, break it off with Laura, and never contact her again. And if you ever try to come near my family again, I'll make sure everyone knows about your little hobby." Mark nodded, defeated. "Fine, I'll stay away." As I left his office, I felt a sense of satisfaction. This was only the beginning. Laura had no idea what was coming, but I was ready. I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal, and every moment of humiliation she had put me through. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and dignity, and I wasn't going to stop until I had it all back. After my confrontation with Mark, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. While it was a small victory, it was just the beginning. Laura had no idea what was coming, and I intended to keep it that way. For now, I kept playing the part of the oblivious husband, biding my time. A few days later, I decided it was time to deliver the first strike. I planned to hit Laura where it would hurt the most, her social life. Laura was always the social butterfly, loved by our friends and neighbors. She thrived on attention and validation, and I knew that exposing her infidelity would be devastating. I started by organizing a small get-together with some close friends. Laura, of course, was thrilled at the prospect of hosting. She went all out, preparing a lavish spread and making sure the house looked perfect. Little did she know, this gathering was about to take a very unexpected turn. That evening, as our friends arrived, Laura was in her element, laughing and chatting as if she didn't have a care in the world. I played along, smiling and engaging in conversations, all the while waiting for the right moment. After dinner, as we all gathered in the living room, I cleared my throat and stood up. "I have something I'd like to share with everyone," I announced, drawing all eyes to me. Laura looked curious but not alarmed. I have been doing some thinking, I continued, and I realized that honesty is the cornerstone of any relationship. In that spirit, I have a confession to make. Laura's eyes widened, and I could see the first flicker of panic. "Tom, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice wavering. Ignoring her, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. "This," I said, holding it up, "contains videos and messages that I recently discovered. They show my wife, Laura, in a compromising position with another man." A shocked silence fell over the room. Our friends looked at each other in disbelief, and Laura's face turned ashen. "Tom, please," she begged, her voice trembling. But I was past the point of caring about her feelings. "I think everyone deserves to know the truth," I said, walking over to the TV and plugging in the USB drive. I pressed play, and the screen filled with footage of Laura and Mark together, laughing, kissing, and more. The room erupted into chaos. Our friends were in shock, some gasping, others whispering in disbelief. Laura stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. She tried to speak, but no words came out. "Tom, why are you doing this?" One of our friends, Sarah, finally asked, her voice filled with sympathy. "Because I am done being humiliated," I replied, my voice steady. "Laura has been cheating on me with this man, Mark, for months, and she had the audacity to involve our daughter in her deceit." Laura finally found her voice. "Tom, please, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Save it, Laura," I said coldly. "You've made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences." The gathering quickly fell apart after that. Our friends, still in shock, offered their support and promised to check in on me. Laura, devastated and humiliated, locked herself in our bedroom, sobbing uncontrollably. That night, as I lay on the couch, I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. The first strike had been delivered, and it landed exactly where I intended, but I wasn't done yet. Laura needed to understand the full extent of her betrayal, and I was prepared to do whatever it took to make sure she did. In the following days, word of Laura's affair spread like wildfire. Our neighbors, who had always looked up to her, began to distance themselves. She became the subject of gossip and whispers, and her once glamorous social life quickly crumbled. One morning, Emma came to me with a question. "Daddy, why is everyone talking about Mommy?" she asked, her innocent eyes filled with confusion. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Emma, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes can hurt the people they love. Mommy made a mistake, and now people are talking about it. But you and Mommy love each other, right?" she asked, her voice trembling. I pulled her into a hug. "I love you very much, Emma, and no matter what happens, that will never change." It was a painful conversation, but I knew it was necessary. Emma deserved to know the truth, or at least a version of it that she could understand. As much as it hurt to see her confused and upset, I was determined to protect her from the worst of it. Meanwhile, Laura tried to salvage what was left of her reputation. She called our friends begging for their forgiveness, but most of them had already made up their minds. They saw her for what she was, a liar and a cheat. One evening, Laura finally confronted me. "Tom, please, can't we just talk about this? We can fix things. I'll do anything." I looked at her, feeling a mixture of anger and pity. "Laura, there's nothing left to fix. You destroyed our marriage the moment you decided to cheat, and now you have to live with the consequences." She broke down in tears, pleading with me. But my resolve was firm. I had given her a chance to come clean, and she had chosen deception instead. Now it was time for her to face the reality of her actions. As I lay in bed that night, I knew there were more steps to take. Laura needed to understand that her betrayal had far-reaching consequences, and I was just getting started. The road to revenge was long, but I was committed to seeing it through to the end. With Laura's social life in shambles, it was time to turn my attention to the next phase of my plan, the legal battle. I needed to ensure that when this was all over, I came out on top. My lawyer and I had been working on a strategy, and now it was time to put it into action. One morning, after dropping Emma off at school, I sat down with Laura at the kitchen table. She looked worn out, her eyes puffy from crying. The confident, defiant woman who had laughed at my anger was gone, replaced by someone desperate and broken. "Laura, we need to talk about the divorce," I said, my voice steady. She flinched at the word but nodded. Okay, Tom, what do you want to discuss? I've spoken to my lawyer and we have drafted the papers. You'll be served today. I'm giving you a choice. You can either sign them without a fight or we can take this to court. If we go to court, I will use every piece of evidence I have against you, and believe me, it won't be pretty. Tears welled up in her eyes. Tom, please, can we find another way? I don't know what to drag this through the courts. I pushed the papers across the table. Then sign these. You'll get a fair settlement, and we can move on with our lives. But if you try to fight me on this, I'll make sure you lose everything. She looked down at the papers, her hands trembling. What about Emma? How will this affect her? We'll share custody, I replied. She needs both of us, and I'm not going to take her away from you. But understand this. If you try to use her against me in any way, I'll make sure the court knows exactly what kind of person you are. Laura nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, Tom. I'll sign the papers. I felt a small sense of relief. One part of the battle was won, but there was still much to be done. As Laura signed the papers, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Despite everything, there had been a time when I loved her deeply, but that time was over, and I needed to focus on the future. The next day, I took the signed papers to my lawyer. He reviewed them and nodded approvingly. This is good, Tom. You've got her right where you want her. Now, we need to move on to the financial aspects. We discussed our strategy in detail. Laura would receive a fair settlement, but I wanted to make sure she didn't walk away with more than she deserved. I had worked hard for everything we had, and I wasn't about to let her betrayal cost me more than it already had. As we finalized the details, I couldn't help but think about Mark. I hadn't seen or heard from him since our confrontation, and I wondered how he was dealing with the fallout. My private investigator had continued to keep tabs on him, and what he found was interesting. Mark's business was starting to suffer. News of his affair with a married woman had spread, and it was affecting his reputation. Clients were pulling out of deals, and his business partners were questioning his judgment. It was exactly what I had hoped for. One evening, I received a call from my investigator. Tom, you're going to want to hear this, he said. Mark's in deep trouble. His investors are planning to pull their funding, and it looks like he is going to be facing a major financial crisis. I smiled to myself. Good. Keep me updated. I want to know every detail. As the days passed, Laura and I continued to live under the same roof, but our interactions were minimal. She was a shadow of her former self, spending most of her time in her room or out of the house. I focused on Emma, making sure she felt loved and secure despite the turmoil. One afternoon, as I was picking Emma up from school, she asked me a question that caught me off guard. Daddy, why doesn't Mommy smile anymore? I looked at her, struggling to find the right words. Mommy's going through a tough time right now, sweetie. But she still loves you very much, and so do I. Emma nodded, seeming to accept my explanation, but her question lingered in my mind. I knew that despite everything, I needed to find a way to make this easier for her. She was an innocent victim in all of this, and I didn't want her to suffer because of our mistakes. Back at home, I decided to have a conversation with Laura. I found her sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. Laura, we need to talk about Emma, I said, sitting down next to her. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pain. What about her? She's been asking questions. She's worried about you, about us. We need to make sure she knows that no matter what happens between us, we both love her and will always be there for her. Laura nodded, wiping away a tear. You are right, Tom. I don't want her to suffer because of my mistakes. We talked for a while, discussing how we could co-parent effectively despite our differences. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. For Emma's sake, we needed to find a way to work together. As the legal proceedings continued, I kept a close eye on Mark. My investigator's updates were my daily dose of satisfaction. His business was on the brink of collapse, and he was scrambling to save it. It was only a matter of time before he faced the full consequences of his actions. One day, as I was working in my home office, I received a call from Mark. I was surprised to say the least. Tom, we need to talk, he said, his voice strained. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. What do you want, Mark? I need your help, he said, desperation evident in his voice. My business is falling apart and I don't know what to do. I couldn't help but laugh. You want my help? After everything you've done, Tom, please, I know I made a mistake, but I'm begging you. If you could just put in a good word for me with some of your contacts, it could make all the difference." I thought about it for a moment, then replied, "Mark, you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. I have no intention of helping you." He was silent for a moment, then said, "I understand, but just know that I'm truly sorry for everything." I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of closure. Mark was getting what he deserved, and I was finally starting to feel like I was regaining control of my life. As the divorce proceedings neared their conclusion, I felt a sense of relief. The end was in sight, and I could finally start to rebuild my life. Laura and I had agreed on the terms, and we were both ready to move on. One evening, as I was putting Emma to bed, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. "Daddy, will everything be okay?" I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetie, everything will be okay, I promise." As I left her room, I felt a sense of hope. The road had been long and difficult, but I was finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And no matter what, I knew that I had the strength to face whatever came next. With the divorce proceedings nearing their end and Mark's life unraveling, I knew it was time to deliver the final blow. I wanted to ensure that both Laura and Mark faced the full consequences of their actions, leaving no stone unturned. It was time to expose Mark's deceit to the world and ensure his downfall was as public and humiliating as possible. I contacted a journalist who specialized in investigative reporting and scandals. We had a mutual acquaintance who assured me that this journalist was discreet and relentless when it came to exposing the truth. I provided all the evidence I had gathered on Mark S. affairs, his manipulations, and his financial troubles. The journalist was intrigued and agreed to take on the story. Within a week, an expose on Mark was published, detailing his infidelities, his business practices, and his rapid descent into financial ruin. The article painted a vivid picture of a man who used his wealth and charm to manipulate and exploit women, only to discard them when they were no longer of use to him. It also highlighted his recent affair with a married woman, revealing how it had led to the collapse of both his personal and professional life. The article spread like wildfire, quickly becoming the talk of the town. Mark S.'s remaining investors pulled out, and his business partners distanced themselves from him. His reputation was in tatters, and he became a pariah in the very circles he once dominated. Laura, too, felt the repercussions. Our friends and neighbors who had already started distancing themselves from her now completely ostracized her. She was left with no support system, no one to turn to. The life she had built on lies and deceit was crumbling around her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. One evening, as I was picking Emma up from a play date, I received a call from Laura. Her voice was shaky, filled with desperation. "Tom, I need to talk to you. Please, can we meet?" I agreed, more out of curiosity than anything else. We met at a small cafe, a neutral place where we could talk without Emma overhearing. Laura looked haggard, her once vibrant appearance now replaced with exhaustion and regret. "Tom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to explain." She began, tears welling up in her eyes. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Go ahead, Laura, explain." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I never wanted to hurt you." I got caught up in the excitement, the thrill of something new. Mark made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years, but it was all a lie. He used me, just like he used all those other women. I listened, feeling a mix of anger and pity. "And what about Emma? Did you ever think about what this would do to her?" Laura's tears flowed freely now. "I did, Tom. I thought I could keep the two worlds separate, that she would never have to know. But I was wrong. I've destroyed everything, and I have no one to blame but myself." There was a moment of silence as I processed her words. Despite everything, part of me still cared about the woman I had once loved, but I knew that forgiveness was a long way off if it ever came at all. "Laura, we can't change the past. What is done is done. But for Emma's sake, we need to find a way to move forward. She deserves better than this." She nodded, wiping her tears. "You're right, Tom. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right for her. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try." We talked for a while longer, discussing how we would co-parent and ensure Emma's well-being. It was a difficult conversation, but a necessary one. Despite our differences, We both wanted what was best for our daughter. As we left the calf, I felt a sense of closure. Laura's remorse was genuine, but it didn't erase the pain she had caused. It would take time to heal, but at least now there was a path forward. Meanwhile, Mark S.'s situation continued to deteriorate. His business went bankrupt, and he was forced to sell his assets to pay off his debts. The once confident, charming man was now a shell of his former self, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. One day I received a call from my investigator. "Tom, you're not going to believe this. Mark S. been arrested." I sat up, surprised. Arrested? For what? Turns out he was involved in some shady business deals, fraud, embezzlement, you name it. The authorities have been investigating him for a while, and they finally had enough to bring him in. I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that karma had finally caught up with Mark in the most spectacular way possible. His downfall was complete, and there was no coming back from it. As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of closure. Mark and Laura had both faced the consequences of their actions, and now I could focus on rebuilding my life. It was time to move forward to create a better future for myself and Emma. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. Laura moved out, finding a small apartment nearby so she could still be close to Emma. We maintained a cordial relationship for our daughter Seike, but the love we once shared was gone, replaced by a mutual understanding and a commitment to co-parent effectively. With the chaos behind me, I threw myself into my work and spending quality time with Emma. We developed new routines, finding joy in the simple things. Slowly but surely, life began to stabilize. One evening, as Emma and I were sitting on the porch watching the sun set, she turned to me and said, "Daddy, I'm glad we re-okay." I smiled, pulling her close. "Me too, sweetie. Me too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. The journey had been long and painful, but we had come out stronger on the other side, and no matter what the future held, I knew that I had the strength to face it. The road to revenge had been a tumultuous one, filled with unexpected twists and turns, but in the end, I had achieved what I set out to do. I had reclaimed my life, and in the process found a deeper sense of purpose and resilience. And as I held Emma close, I knew that we would be okay, no matter what challenges lay ahead. With the divorce finalized and Mark S.'s downfall complete, I finally felt a sense of closure. I could focus entirely on my future and rebuilding my life. Emma and I had settled into a new routine, one that brought stability and a sense of peace back into our home, but I knew I couldn't move forward without addressing some of the lingering issues from the past. A few weeks after the dust had settled, I received a surprising message from Mark. He had been released on bail and he wanted to meet. My initial reaction was one of anger and disbelief, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet him at a local park, a public place where I felt safe. When I arrived, Mark was already there, looking like a shadow of his former self. He was thinner, his face gaunt, and his once confident demeanor was replaced with a haunted look. As I approached, he stood up and extended his hand. "Tom, thanks for meeting me," he said, his voice subdued. I didn't shake his hand. "What do you want, Mark?" He sighed, dropping his hand. "I wanted to apologize for everything. I know my words probably done a mean much, but I needed to say it. I ruined your life, and I'm paying the price for it now." I crossed my arms, studying him. "Why now? Why do you suddenly care about the damage you've done?" He looked away, staring at the ground. "Because I've lost everything. My business, my reputation, my freedom. I'm facing serious charges, and there's a good chance I'll go to prison. I've had a lot of time to think about my actions, and I realize now how much harm I caused." His words didn't evoke any sympathy from me. Instead, I felt a sense of indication. "You are right, Mark. You did ruin my life, but I am rebuilding it, and I don't need your apology." Mark nodded, accepting my words. "I understand. I needed to try. I'm sorry, Tom, truly." I turned to leave, not wanting to give him any more of my time. "Goodbye, Mark. I hope you find a way to make amends for your actions, but don't expect forgiveness from me." As I walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Mark's apology didn't change anything, but it marked the end of a painful chapter in my life. I was ready to move forward to embrace the new beginnings that awaited me. In the weeks that followed, I focused on creating a positive environment for Emma and myself. I redecorated the house, making it a space that reflected our new life. I also started reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, building a support system that I had neglected during my marriage. One evening, as Emma and I were playing in the backyard, I noticed a new family moving into the house next door. A woman about my age was supervising the movers, and a little boy about Emma's age was running around excitedly. Emma, always the social butterfly, immediately wanted to go over and introduce herself. We walked over together and I introduced myself. "Hi, I am Tom, and this is my daughter Emma. Welcome to the neighborhood." The woman smiled warmly. "Hi, Tom, I'm Sarah, and this is my son Jake. Thanks for the welcome. We are excited to be here." Emma and Jake hit it off instantly, running off to play while Sarah and I chatted. We talked about the neighborhood, our kids, and our lives. It was refreshing to have a normal, pleasant conversation with someone new, free from the shadows of my past. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I developed a friendship. We often had coffee together while our kids played, and we shared stories about our experiences as single parents. It was comforting to find someone who understood the challenges and joys of raising a child alone. One afternoon, as we sat on my porch watching Emma and Jake play, Sarah turned to me. "Tom, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what happened with Emma's mom? I've noticed she is not around." I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation was inevitable. "Laura and I divorced recently. She had an affair and it tore our family apart. We are working on co-parenting, but it's been a tough road." Sarah reached out and touched my hand gently. "I'm sorry, Tom. That must have been incredibly difficult, but you're doing a great job with Emma. She's a wonderful little girl. Thanks, Sarah. It hasn't been easy, but I'm trying my best." Our friendship deepened over time, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations. Sarah was kind, understanding, and supportive. She had her own struggles, having recently gone through a divorce herself, and we bonded over our shared experiences. One evening, as we sat on my porch after the kids had gone to bed, Sarah hesitated before speaking. "Tom, I really enjoyed getting to know you. You are a great dad and a wonderful friend. I think I'm starting to have feelings for you." Her words took me by surprise, but as I looked at her, I realized I felt the same way. "Sarah, I've even been feeling the same. I wasn't sure if it was too soon to say anything, but I really care about you." She smiled, relief washing over her face. "I'm glad to hear that. I know we both have a lot of healing to do, but maybe we can take this journey together." We took things slowly, allowing our relationship to develop naturally. Emma and Jake became close friends, and it was heartwarming to see them so happy. Sarah and I supported each other through our challenges, celebrating our victories and comforting each other in our struggles. As the months passed, our bond grew stronger. We spent holidays together, took the kids on trips, and created new traditions. It wasn't always easy, but we faced every challenge together, knowing we had each other's backs. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to Sarah and took her hand. "Sarah, I'm grateful for every moment we've shared. You've brought so much joy and love into my life, and I can imagine it without you." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Tom, you and Emma have become my family. I'm so thankful for you both, and I look forward to our future together." As we sat there holding hands and watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace and contentment I hadn't felt in years. The pain and betrayal of the past were behind me, and I was ready to embrace the new beginnings that lay ahead. Life had thrown its share of challenges my way, but I had emerged stronger, with a newfound sense of purpose and a loving partner by my side. And as I looked at Emma and Jake playing in the yard, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together as a family. Our relationship with Sarah was blossoming, and life was starting to feel normal again. Emma was thriving, and I was happier than I had been in years. But there was still the matter of Laura. Despite everything, she was still Emma's mother, and we had to find a way to co-parent effectively. One Saturday morning, Laura called and asked if we could meet. She wanted to discuss a more structured custody arrangement for Emma. I agreed, knowing that it was important for Emma to have stability and clear expectations. We met at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. Laura looked tired but determined. "Tom, I've been thinking a lot about Emma. She needs consistency, and I want to make sure we are both on the same page." I nodded, appreciating her effort. I agree. Emma, as well-being, is the most important thing. What do you have in mind? Laura laid out a schedule that included regular visitation times and shared holidays. It was a fair arrangement, and I was relieved to see that she was genuinely trying to make amends. We discussed the details and agreed on a plan that we both felt would be best for Emma. As we finished our conversation, Laura looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. Tom, I know I've said this before, but I truly am sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you or Emma. I've been seeing a therapist trying to understand why I did what I did. I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions. Laura, I appreciate that. It's going to take time for me to fully trust you again, but I am willing to try. For Emma's sake, she nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Thank you, Tom. That means a lot. With the new custody arrangement in place, we began to find a rhythm. Emma adapted well to the schedule, and it was clear that having both her parents involved in her life made her happier. Laura and I communicated regularly, keeping each other informed about Emma's activities and needs. One evening, after dropping Emma off at Laura's, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with Sarah. We had been growing closer, and I wanted to make sure she was comfortable with the evolving dynamics of my co-parenting relationship with Laura. Sarah, can we talk? I asked as we sat on the porch enjoying a quiet moment together. Of course, Tom. What's on your mind? She replied, looking at me with concern. I've been thinking a lot about the future, I began. Laura and I have worked out a custody arrangement for Emma and things are starting to settle down, but I want to make sure you're okay with everything. I know this isn't easy. Sarah reached over and took my hand. Tom, I understand that Laura will always be a part of your life because of Emma, and I support you in doing what is best for her. I am here for you, and I want to be a part of this journey wherever it takes us. Her words filled me with gratitude and love. Thank you, Sarah. Your support means the world to me. As the months passed, our blended family found its footing. Emma thrived in the stable environment we had created, and our relationship with Sarah continued to deepen. We faced challenges together, supporting each other through the ups and downs. One day, as Emma and Jake played in the yard, Sarah and I sat on the porch talking about the future. Tom, I've been thinking about something, Sarah said, her eyes twinkling with excitement. What is that? I asked, curious. Well, Jake and I have been so happy here with you and Emma. I was thinking, maybe it is time we made it official. What do you think about moving in together? Her words caught me by surprise, but in the best way possible. I had been thinking the same thing, but hadn't wanted to rush her. Sarah, I do love that. I think it's the perfect next step for us. With our decision made, we began planning the logistics of merging our households. It was an exciting time filled with anticipation and joy. We found a larger house nearby that had enough space for both families, and we started the process of making it our new home. The move brought new challenges, but it also strengthened our bond. We worked together to create a space that felt like home for all of us, blending our belongings and traditions. The kids were thrilled with the new house, especially since it had a big backyard where they could play together. One evening after the kids were asleep, Sarah and I sat in the living room, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked. Tom, I am so happy we were doing this, she said, leaning against me. Me too, Sarah. It feels right, I replied, kissing her forehead. As we settled into our new life, I found myself reflecting on how far we had come. The pain and betrayal of the past had given way to a future filled with hope and love. I had learned to trust again, and in doing so, had found happiness I never thought possible. One weekend, we decided to throw a housewarming party to celebrate our new beginning. We invited friends, family, and even some of our neighbors. It was a joyous occasion filled with laughter and new memories. During the party, Laura approached me holding a small gift. Tom, I just wanted to say congratulations. The house is beautiful and I am glad to see you so happy. Thanks, Laura. It means a lot, I replied, accepting the gift. As the evening wound down, I stood on the porch watching the sunset with Sarah by my side. The kids were playing in the yard, their laughter echoing in the warm evening air. Tom, look at us. We've come so far, Sarah said, her voice filled with contentment. We really have, I agreed, holding her close. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a profound sense of peace. Life had thrown its challenges our way, but we had faced them head-on and come out stronger. Our blended family was a testament to resilience, love, and the power of new beginnings. And as I stood there, surrounded by the people I loved, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together with trust, love, and unwavering support. With Sarah and I now living together, life felt more complete. We had a stable home, our children were happy, and we were building a future that seemed promising. However, as with any new chapter, unseen challenges began to emerge. One evening, after tucking Emma and Jake into bed, Sarah and I sat down to discuss some concerns that had been bubbling beneath the surface. "Tom, I've noticed that Emma has been acting out a bit more lately. Have you seen the same?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowed with worry. I nodded, having observed the same behavior. "Yes, I've noticed. She's been more moody and less willing to share her feelings. I think the move and all the changes are starting to take a toll on her." Sarah sighed, running her fingers through her hair. "I think Jake is having some issues too. He's been more withdrawn and clingy. Maybe we should consider family counseling to help them navigate these changes." The idea made sense, and I was grateful for Sarah's insight. That is a good idea. I'll look into finding a good family therapist. As we navigated this new phase of our lives, it became clear that blending families was more complex than we had initially thought. We scheduled our first session with a family therapist, hoping it would provide the guidance we needed. During our first session, the therapist, Dr. Martin, was warm and understanding. She asked us about our family dynamics, the challenges we were facing, and what we hoped to achieve through counseling. Emma and Jake were initially hesitant, but gradually opened up. Emma spoke first. "I miss how things used to be. I miss having just Daddy and me. And I miss Mommy too, even though she hurt us." Jake, sitting close to Sarah, added, "I miss my old house. I miss my friends. I like Emma and Tom, but it's different now." Their words were a stark reminder of how much they had been through. Dr. Martin guided us through exercises to improve communication and help the kids express their feelings more openly. She emphasized the importance of maintaining routines and creating new traditions to make our blended family feel more cohesive. Over the next few weeks, we attended regular therapy sessions. The kids slowly began to adapt, and Sarah and I worked hard to ensure they felt secure and loved. We planned family outings, game nights, and movie marathons, trying to build a sense of unity. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, Sarah and I sat on the porch talking about our progress. "Tom, I think the therapy is helping. The kids seem to be opening up more, and I feel like we're starting to find our rhythm," she said, her voice tinged with hope. "I agree. It's been tough, but I'm proud of how we are handling it. We are stronger together," I replied, squeezing her hand. Just as things seemed to be settling, another unexpected twist came our way. Laura called one afternoon, sounding distraught. "Tom, I need to talk to you. Is about Emma." My heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong, Laura? It's not something I can discuss over the phone. Can you meet me at the park in an hour?" she asked, her voice shaky. I agreed, feeling a knot of anxiety form in my stomach. When I arrived at the park, Laura was sitting on a bench, looking more stressed than I'd ever seen her. "Laura, what's going on?" She took a deep breath before speaking. "Tom, I've been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. I'm going to need surgery and possibly chemotherapy. I am scared, and I don't know what this means for Emma." The news hit me like a ton of bricks. Despite everything, Laura was still Emma's mother, and this news would affect all of us. "Laura, I am so sorry. What do you need from me?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I need your support. I want Emma to stay with you and Sarah more while I go through treatment. I don't want her to see me like this, at least not until I'm stronger." I nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Of course, Laura, we'll do whatever we can to help. Emma's well-being is the most important thing." Back at home, I shared the news with Sarah. She was immediately supportive, offering to help in any way she could. "Tom, we'll get through this together. We need to be strong for Emma and for Laura." We sat down with Emma to explain the situation as gently as possible. She was understandably upset, but we reassured her that her mom was getting the best care and that we would all support each other through this. In the weeks that followed, our family dynamic shifted once again. Emma spent more time with us, and we made sure to keep her routine as normal as possible. Laura kept us updated on her progress, and we visited her regularly, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy for Emma. One evening, after visiting Laura at the hospital, Emma asked me a question that broke my heart. "Daddy, is Mommy going to be okay?" I pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. "Mommy is getting the best care, sweetheart. The doctors are doing everything they can to help her get better. We just have to be strong and support her." As the months passed, Laura underwent surgery and started chemotherapy. It was a difficult time for all of us, but it also brought us closer together. Sarah S. Unwavering support was a constant source of strength, and our therapy sessions continued to help us navigate the complexities of our blended family. One day, after another round of chemotherapy, Laura called me. "Tom, I've got some good news. The doctors say the treatment is working. The cancer is shrinking." A wave of relief washed over me. "That is amazing news, Laura. I'm so glad to hear that." As Laura's health improved, we began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Emma was able to spend more time with her mom, and we all started to settle back into a more stable routine. Through it all, Sarah and I remained committed to each other and to our family. The challenges we faced only strengthened our bond, and we knew that whatever came our way, we could handle it together. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Tom, we have been through so much, but I truly believe we're stronger for it. I'm so grateful to have you and Emma in my life." I kissed her gently, feeling the same overwhelming gratitude, "And I'm grateful for you, Sarah. We've built something beautiful here, and I wouldn't change it for anything." As we sat there, holding each other close, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we had the strength and love to face them together. Our journey had been far from easy, but it had led us to a place of deep connection and unwavering, and as the sun set on another day, I felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that our family was stronger than ever, ready to face whatever the future held. As Laura's health continued to improve, we slowly transitioned back into a more typical routine. Emma spent more time with her mom, and Sarah and I found ourselves adjusting to the new normal. Despite the challenges, our bond remained strong, and we were grateful for the stability we had built together. One afternoon, as Sarah and I were enjoying a rare moment of quiet while the kids played in the yard, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The message read, "We need to talk, it is important." Attached was a photo of a man I didn't recognize. My curiosity piqued. I decided to respond, arranging to meet the sender at a nearby coffee shop. When I arrived, I was greeted by a man in his mid-40s with a serious expression. "Tom, thanks for coming," he said, extending his hand. "I am David, and I am afraid I have some troubling information to share with you." I shook his hand, my anxiety mounting. "What's this about, David?" He took a deep breath before speaking. "I am Mark's brother. I know what he did to you and your family, and I am truly sorry, but there's something you need to know. Mark's out of jail, and he's been trying to contact Laura. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut." "What do you mean he is out of jail? How is that possible?" David explained that Mark had been released on good behavior and was now trying to rebuild his life. He claims he wants to make amends, but I don't trust him. I'm worried he'll cause more trouble. I thanked David for the information and hurried home, my mind racing. When I told Sarah what I had learned, she shared my concern. "Tom, we need to be prepared. We can let him disrupt our lives again." We agreed to speak with Laura to warn her about Mark and to ensure she took steps to protect herself and Emma. Laura was understandably shaken by the news. "I thought we were done with him," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what him anywhere near Emma." We discussed the situation with our therapist who advised us on how to handle any potential contact from Mark. We updated our security measures at home and made sure Emma knew to come to us if she ever saw Mark. One evening, a few weeks later, as Sarah and I were watching a movie, my phone buzzed with another message from David. "Tom, Mark has been spotted near your neighborhood. Be careful." The anxiety returned stronger this time. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark was up to something. That night, I hardly slept, my mind filled with worry and the fear of what Mark might do. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I visited Mark's last known address, determined to confront him and put an end to his interference once and for all. When I arrived, I found him living in a rundown apartment complex. I knocked on his door, my heart pounding. Mark opened the door, looking surprised to see me. "Tom, what are you doing here?" I'm here to tell you to stay away from my family, I said, my voice firm. You've caused enough damage, and I want to let you hurt us again. He raised his hands in a placating gesture. Tom, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to talk to Laura to apologize. I glared at him, my anger boiling over. Your apologies mean nothing. Stay away from us, or I'll make sure you regret it. Mark nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. I understand, Tom. I'll stay away. I left feeling a mixture of relief and lingering anxiety. I hoped Mark would keep his word, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't too completely safe. As I drove home, I received a call from Sarah. Tom, Emma, has been asking a lot of questions about her mom's health and why things have changed so much. I think we need to have a family meeting to address her concerns and reassure her. That evening, we sat down with Emma and Jake, explaining as gently as possible what was happening. Emma, we want you to know that no matter what, you are safe and loved, I said, holding her hand. Your mom is getting better, and we are all here to support each other. Emma nodded, her eyes wide with understanding. I just want us to be happy again. Sarah smiled, pulling Emma into a hug. We will be, sweetheart. We are a family, and we'll get through this together. With the immediate threat of Mark seemingly under control, we focused on rebuilding our sense of normalcy. Laura, as health continued to improve, and our family therapy sessions helped us navigate the complexities of our blended family. One sunny Saturday, as we were having a picnic in the park, Laura approached me. Tom, I wanted to thank you for everything. You've been incredibly supportive, and I couldn't have gotten through this without you and Sarah. I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. Laura, despite everything, we're still a family. We'll always be there for each other, for Emma. As we watched the kids play, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We had faced numerous challenges, but we had come out stronger. Our family was resilient, and we had built a foundation of love and support that would carry us through whatever came next. One evening, a few months later, as Sarah and I were sitting on the porch, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Tom, I've been thinking about the future. We've been through so much, and I believe we are ready for the next step. I looked at her, curiosity piqued. What do you mean? She smiled, taking my hand. I mean, let's make this official. Let's get married. Her words filled me with joy. Sarah, I would love that. I can't imagine my life without you. As we planned our wedding, our friends and family rallied around us, offering their support and love. It was a beautiful, intimate ceremony, a testament to the strength and resilience of our love, standing together, surrounded by the people who had supported us through our journey. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had faced our challenges head-on, and we had emerged stronger, united by love and commitment. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together as a family. And as we exchanged our vows, promising to love and support each other through thick and thin, I felt a profound sense of peace and happiness, knowing that we had found our forever home in each other as hearts.